Hello, today I want to talk about buyer's remorse. Life oftentimes is more complicated than just buying less. And sometimes even the things we need to buy can be a disappointment, or sometimes even if they're not a disappointment, we can realize that we actually prefer something else or don't need it or it doesn't fit or it's just not right for us. Or just because we are human and we are never going to be 100% perfect. And also, the things we accumulate, bring into our home, are also not going to be 100% perfect all the time. And of course, the buy less and think better about what you will purchase will decrease the disappointment and having to deal with buyer's remorse a lot, and it will make our lives much easier. But even then, we can still be confronted with this. The thing is, this world is designed with advertisements and stores that are meant to manipulate our behavior, and most of the things are made fast and cheap, and there are just so many bad products. It's hard to avoid this buyer's remorse all the time. Usually for me, when I watch videos about this and it's all about you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, don't buy this, don't do this. For me personally, that makes me just feel worse because I'm already dealing with buyer's remorse and I'm already not happy with it. So punish myself more or telling that I did something wrong is not going to make me feel better or does much for me. So for me personally, the most important thing is to change my own behavior, especially towards myself. I try to not get mad at myself, to punish myself, to blame, to talk negative, to think negative thoughts about myself, and so forth. Because this will never be productive in the long term. It will not change my life in any way, and there is nothing coming out of this. I know I shouldn't, I know I should have done it, or things like that. I know that's obvious, that's not the problem that I don't know. So rather, I try to see this as a learning opportunity and something that I can reflect upon. I see it as a piece of information that I have gained. I know more now, and that is valuable. So I try to replace self punishment, self hate, and feeling worthless, and just the obvious words like shouldn't and bad. I try to replace those with self compassion, of course, in combination with self reflection and self responsibility. Many people think that if we would replace the self hate and those awful words like should or must, that we will fall into this black hole of total chaos, and that's not the case at all. Freedom means extreme responsibility. Being happy, living intentional means taking ownership, viewing life as a learning lesson, and trying to learn and improve things. So here are some of the examples of when buyer's remorse can occur in my situations usually. The first thing is that the product didn't cost much. So this means it's not as bad for the budget, but oftentimes it means I just bought something only for the price and I'm already starting to think about replacing it with something that is made out of a better quality. The second situation is the product was expensive, but after the first kick of the newness goes away, I regret it, and especially the big amount of money that now disappeared out of my bank account. And I'm starting to think like, was it really worth it? And all the other things I could have done with the money. The third one is the irony of buying sustainable things or handmade things, ethical things, zero waste things, and so forth. And I noticed that even in these categories, there are products that just don't measure up to my requirements or that are just not working properly, that have been advertised falsely. And this can hurt a bit more because it was more expensive, but on the other hand, the manufacturing process was probably less of a burden on the environment. And another way that I can experience buyer's remorse is when things just don't seem to fit in my home or what I need, and that the minute I put it into my home or within a couple of days, weeks, I come to the conclusion that I actually don't want this. But it's difficult to know this beforehand, so there's not much I can do about this. So here are some tips how to deal with it. I think it's important that we just have to accept that there are a lot of products made badly or that just won't fit into our home, that we will not have it perfect all the time, that is probably impossible. So accepting it. Another tip is that I noticed that besides of some of the products that make our lives easier and that we really need, like sheets, bed linen, pots and pans, curtains, things like that, that besides of all of those kind of things, most of the things I add into my home make life more complicated than easier. Another way to look at it is that we do have to try things out. That's the only way we will know, so sometimes it's a little bit unavoidable, and that's okay too. And obviously, like shopping intentional, keeping a list with things I need and trying to only go for that and nothing else, not get distracted. Sometimes this means getting things online rather than going into a store. Personally, I am also very careful with sales because I know that rush is a bad decision maker. And I know that it is a manipulative tactic. And in a very hard way, I have learned that regardless of consumption, one of the most important rules in life is think carefully and take time. Never make a decision on the spot, especially when it's a very big decision. Never feel pressured with time because you are the one that will have to live with the consequences for the rest of your life, no one else. So everyone can pressure you, everyone can make you feel like there's no time, but you will have to live with the consequences. So never feel pressured by a perceived lack of time. For me personally, one of the biggest pitfalls for the longest time were second-hand shops. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of those, and they are becoming very popular the last couple of years. And I just noticed that a lot of impulse decisions have been made there, especially because everything looks so cheap and it has already been used. So the weight of this product feels less heavy. The weight of it on the environment and everything, which makes it easier for me to come up with things that I don't need. And the last tip that works the best for me is that I see it as a learning lesson and something that will improve within years. I don't force myself to be perfect right now, within a couple of weeks, months, and so forth. I think of it as an investment for the rest of my life, and that it will get easier and I will have more awareness within years and years to come. For now, I have a list and I write things down that I have regretted buying so that I can always look at the list and remember why and what made me buy something, and also to see patterns and where my weak spots are and things like that. I think it really helps to have it written down and looking at it from a distance. And also because I buy so little, it is not that much work to write it down. And the last tip is that if I regret something and I cannot even return it back, there is no point in holding it in my home. It's always better to let it go anyway. And of course, I do my best to try to do this as responsible as possible. But if I cannot let go of it in any way that is responsible and I know it will end up in the garbage, then as hard as it may sound, it is still better to do that and to learn from it and to try to buy less things that I don't need in the future than to hold on to it and to be reminded of this product that doesn't make me happy. So eventually, letting go is always the best thing. And also here as well, if it is not a hell yes, it's a no. That's just the best tip ever for everything in life. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much. And I hope to see you next time again.